This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes it to go! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
It's the Motor City Sports Rant. Hey-o. It's your host, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. And with me, as always, John the Doc Macaroon, the Podfather, or not the Podfather, the guy who went to Indianapolis to cover March Madness. John, what's up?
Spring is here, Jason.
Spring isn't here.
It is here.
I rolled down my windows on the way here.
It's in the 40s, man.
40s isn't. I mean, I guess for Michigan people, where our blood is already pretty frozen. 40, I might go home and throw on some shorts. You know, when we had the baby, I was in shorts for about 3.5 weeks, just because I was inside almost the entire time, but it was generally as hot as hell, so I needed to stay cool.
So you did bring your baby to the office, to your work, and I'm always curious when people do bring their babies. Do people are they cool to go up to the baby? How do they act around a new baby? Is your work comfortable, or are they a little bit shy, or did you parade them around? What is it like when you bring a baby into a work setting?
I imagine it would be different at other places, but bringing them into the radio station, we brought them in to really see the people that I've worked with. I've worked with Sugar Ray now, and now I'm working with Shay Shay in the morning. And they've gotten us some gifts, so we wanted to bring them in, and it was a surprise. My wife brought them in towards the end of the show, so we brought them in, and they were just like, "Oh my God!" It was natural. It's what ladies do whenever they see a baby.
My homeboy Jason up in here.
It was funny because I brought him into the studio, and Shay was in there, so she saw him first. And Sugar, she doesn't just work in Detroit. She actually does some voice tracking for other stations around the country. So she was recording it in a different studio. So I went to go get her, and I was like, "Hey, there's a guest in the studio. Come in here." And she was skeptical at first. She's like, "What? What do you mean?" I'm like, "Just come in." She's like, "I don't know about that." I'm like, "Just come on." So she came in, and she was very surprised. I've showed her a bunch of pictures, and she always is like, "Oh my God." So it was cool. We offered if they wanted to hold them, but they were fine. I think one thing, it was kind of unspoken. Radio people, and especially on air talent, their voice that's their job. So I can see the hesitancy to want to hold a baby and possibly get some germs and get sick, which I've been fortunate enough that ever since we had the kid that I haven't really gotten anything, but I'm always washing my hands. I'm always making sure to try and stay as healthy as possible, even though I don't lead the healthiest of lifestyles.
Episode 99 about to kick off. We're going to talk about the Michigan Wolverines, the network's trip to Indy. We'll definitely talk about some other things in the later half of the podcast, talking about maybe our sports watching habits. But I definitely wanted to get your sense of, now that you're a dad and you're getting older, Friday the 17th was St. Patrick's Day. That was the day of the Michigan game, their first round matchup versus OK State. So for me, it wasn't one of those things where I went out. But driving there, I listened to some local radio, listened to some national radio, and a lot of people were discussing what their plans were for the day. And I was thinking, for me, I was never really into that particular holiday. I never went out to an Irish pub or never went out for corned beef at like 5 a.m. But people were calling up in the morning because I had left early in the morning for my drive out to Indy, and people were talking about lining up, going out at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. for St. Patrick's Day, going out and having a good old time. And especially having it, for me, I don't know why I didn't recognize, does usually St. Patrick's Day fall on a tournament weekend? Because, oh my goodness, if you were going to go out there and drink in the morning, watch the Michigan game at noon, then hang out all day and party. I don't know if you were a State fan, how you're going to last up until 9 p.m. without a nap, without something to tide you over. For me, I was never a big St. Patrick's Day guy. Thank goodness. And everyone kind of says, oh, avoid it. It's a terrible day on the roads. I was on the roads for 11 hours on the highway primarily. It wasn't all that bad. But for me, I'm not really a big St. Patrick's Day guy. Are you? And what'd you do this year?
And you really need to, you got to be passionate about St. Patrick's Day. It's usually, if you truly are Irish, I think they take it a little bit more seriously. Or if you're just a 20-something who likes to party, then it's like your biggest holiday of the year, outside of maybe the day before Thanksgiving, which is apparently the biggest bar night in America. But yeah, we didn't really do anything. I'm a new parent. I had to work. I think we really took it easy. I worked in the morning. I worked at night. I was working Pistons that night, so didn't really have an opportunity. I mean, there was probably a short window of time where I could have gone to a bar and maybe had a couple beers and then sober up enough to go back into the radio station. But if you really have to plan it, and we've done it before. We've at least once we've gone out where we went to the Irish pub in our town. You know Pat O'Brien's, right, on Jefferson and St. Clair Shores, and they're a great place. We got there, I think, probably around 6 a.m. They had a whole brunch, which is, it was delicious. But also, you got to imagine if you're actually eating a brunch, it's gonna kill your buzz. So if you're looking to really booze it up on St. Patrick's Day, a brunch may not be the best way to go. So, but we went. I think we probably lasted from about 6 a.m. to about 1 p.m. and I was never like just blasted out of my mind, but we did some steady drinking the entire morning into the afternoon. And I gotta say, leaving, I was like, the day's over. I'm done the rest of the day because I'm exhausted.
And thinking about sports, obviously in town, everyone's looking forward to opening day. That's usually the day around town that people set aside and they go out to the ballpark, get their drinks on. So if you could only go out and plan to go out for one day, would it be opening day versus St. Patrick's Day?
I would probably do. I would. I haven't actually done that for opening day.
You've never gone out?
I've never gone out for opening day.
Okay, well, let your kid grow up a little bit, get him to 2, 3. We have to do it, Jason. It's amazing. I got that out of my system.
I've heard the stories, and I don't have a lot of my friends that I hung out with from high school. They weren't really big sports people, so I didn't have that group to really go out with.
Even if you're a guy that doesn't want to throw down and drink to excess, to go down there and experience the vibe and the energy of the downtown area on opening day was unreal. I went down there consecutively for about a 2 to 3 year stretch. 1 year just really whooped it up from morning until night. And after that, I kind of was over it. And then the next couple years, you kind of just go and be part of the festive atmosphere. Everyone's drinking, everyone's having a good time. And then after the game, basically the game is in the backdrop. The majority of people don't go to the game.
Yeah, the majority of people are just drinking.
Going downtown to the tents, finding a good spot, a good watering hole, and throwing them back. And it's a party town. It's unbelievable to see 3-4 blocks of people partying. And now with the district, in about 3 to 4 years, it could be basically one of the biggest parties of the year in town. And I guarantee you, in 5 years, when you're comfortable, settled in as a pop, and, taking care of your kid, everything's good, we'll go down there and we'll celebrate, and we'll definitely do it up the right way.
If somebody wants to take me down, I am completely open to that. My wife's even been to opening day. She didn't do all the crazy partying, but she has been, I think, at least 2 opening days. And it's kind of one of those things that I'm ashamed to say that I've never been to a Tigers opening day game.
It's okay. Forget the game part. We can do that, way down when the tickets go down and the Tigers stink. Because right now, it's like a $200 ticket, or basically right now, at this point in time, all you can get is a standing room to get into Comerica Park. But no, we gotta get you to experience an opening day festivities.
I've had my own events, though. I went down. I went to the national championship game at Ford Field, Michigan State, North Carolina, and I went down by myself because I only had one ticket, and I got there a little early, and I went to one of the tents in there to pregame it, and then just went and watched the abysmal game that it was.
Oh, you saw the final game? No, see, I went to the Final Four game, State versus Connecticut, and when that dunk went down, when you see a stadium erupt full of Spartans, And I always will be indebted to my brother-in-law for taking me. We had maybe row 40 behind the basket, and so we got to see the live dunk from that perspective. It was awesome. It was thunderous. It was a win, and it was just a festive vibe. And when obviously a Spartan supporter is in love with the team, and you get that victory, that was a good time, man. That was around the time where I started Twitter. It was March 2009.
Yeah, no, I was there the next game for the championship, and God dang Tyler Hansborough. He was the worst ever.
The tale of two halves, man. They played well in the second half. They came back, and unfortunately, they just weren't able to overcome what North Carolina was able to do in that first half. They couldn't overcome the deficit.
That seems to be Michigan State basketball's MO. Is for the past, decade?
I think it's a good spot for us to start, man.
It is. Michigan State, they failed. They could have gone on to the Sweet 16. It was right there. And they just let it slip by.
How much of a pass do you give Tom Izzo and the Spartans due to the fact that you saw it? Miles Bridges wasn't right. He wasn't 100%. He had a hip pointer. You saw early in the game that he went down, kind of hunched over. And even though he did match Jackson point for point, he did a good job. You could tell that Jackson and Kansas had way more support, much better leadership at the guard position, and it was just a better team. That was what was supposed to happen. That's why Kansas was a number 1 seed, and you really needed Kansas to not play well or have a situation where they choked. And State wasn't good enough to win. So do you give him a pass at all?
I kind of give him I guess I give him a pass in that game because really anything past the opening round is really gravy. You're playing with house chips. And because we lost in the second round of the Big Ten tournament, we couldn't get past Minnesota. In Miami, it was a tough game there, even though we did end up winning by 20. And yeah, Kansas, we were supposed to lose, but we had the talent at the beginning of the season. I think this entire season, you kind of have to almost give a pass because it just didn't go right from game one. And it's one of those classic things where everything looked great on paper, but when it came time for the games to start to play, it just didn't work out.
Exactly. And the way you look at it, too, the Michigan State Spartans were one of the most injured teams in the entire, NCAA. They didn't have much experience. They were young. They featured 4 freshmen. And it's just one of those things where you look at it, though, what really bothered me in the Kansas game, first and foremost, though, I want to give them credit. It was very entertaining on a Friday night on St. Patrick's Day to watch the Spartans whoop a team's ass. That was great to go out there, and after the way they started to, it was atrocious.
God.
It was atrocious.
I was at the station, and I turned it on from the opening tip, and I was like, I can't watch this.
No, it's a mess. You would throw the remote, you would be all pissed, and then a light bulb went off, and they were able to come back and destroy Miami. So that was good. It was nice to see the Spartans have an easy type game and get into the game versus Kansas. So you get a couple of days extra hype and extra buzz. Many people thought that, hey, if the Spartans were to play a decent game, that they would be able to hang with Kansas. But unfortunately, you saw what Jackson was able to do. So the Spartans were able to get it to 1, and then Jackson took over. And that's what was the most devastating part for me, was knowing that you had a guy there that was dominating in a game, and you had a player that could have been a Spartan. This
could have been in a completely different season if Josh Jackson comes to Michigan State. I mean, it could have turned out the exact same way where things just didn't mesh. But yeah, you're right. Josh Jackson, one of the better players in the college basketball right now.
It's one of those things where you could see the potential. What if Caleb Swanigan would have held his commitment to Michigan State? What if Deontay Davis didn't go and leave to be a second-round pick and basically be a bench warmer, didn't take the money? Now you're looking at a team that could compete and destroy the competition and win the tournament. And when we talk about Michigan State, a lot of people are, hyping them up right now. Oh, look at the 4 freshmen. They got a lot of experience. Oh, look what's happening. Oh, look who's coming in. Look what's going to happen now in the future for Michigan State. The future's bright.
Yeah, they got 4 freshmen, but the main part of that four freshmen is probably going to be gone. I would love for Miles Bridges to stay around because, yeah, if all Bridges, Nick Ward, Cassius Winston and Josh Langford, if all those guys were to stick around with all the other talent that's coming in, yes, it would be easy to get excited about next year. But Miles Bridges is the key in that. I think Nick Ward is he's going to be an interesting player next year, and I think Cassius Winston and Josh Langford definitely have some growing to do. They could be one of those guys who progresses in Izzo's system, like a Denzel Valentine, where you saw the flashes, and then finally they're able to put it together in their junior and senior year. But without Miles Bridges, I think you're definitely going to take a step back next year, and it's going to be a season where it's figuring out how we're going to play and what are we going to be able to do.
And at this point in time, I hate to say it, but many people are really in love with Tom Izzo. They hold him in high reverence. He's done a lot of good things, and we're only a couple years removed from his last Final Four appearance. He's taken the program to the Final Four several times and earned an NCAA title bid. But right now, in terms of talking about Tom Izzo and that Spartan program, we need more. Unfortunately, you look at it, and it's not something where I focus on his coaching. I do believe that you could nitpick a little bit in terms of when he uses his freshmen, when Nick Ward is in and out, but he was in foul trouble in that game versus Kansas. I was begging and pleading, just let it ride it out. If he fouls out, he fouls out. But unfortunately, Tom Izzo is set in his ways. So his coaching style will have success. Obviously, when a team gets to the NCAA tournament 20 years in a row, what are you going to do? I mean, there are some teams that never qualify. And so you look at it and you go, what is it going to take for the Spartans to get the guys like a Jackson, to get the guys like a Swanigan, and bring up recruiting classes that are consistent, like a Kansas, like a Kentucky? Because many people say, well, look at these guys that are coming in. Yeah, that's great. But the best players are yet to come consistently to Michigan State. And that's the part that I want to focus on, is why. Why is it that the best players in the country and to look at and explore what Michigan State has done, they should get more. They should get a Jackson. They should get a Swanigan. They should get, a Deontay Davis to stay. And I know the lure of the money is huge, but you basically understand that if you have a long tournament run, that also adds money to your pocket. You could be a top 5 pick if you have success, and you can be in the NBA, an NBA-ready player. I know the money is so big right now, but I'm just a little bit frustrated that the Spartans aren't able to recruit top-level talent in terms of nationally. Locally, they own it. They own the state of Michigan. A lot of the top players go there. But nationally, why did a Caleb Swanigan commit to Michigan State and then leave? Why did Michigan State have to beg Jackson to even consider Michigan State, and he ends up going to Kansas? This is a Michigan guy. You cannot let him go to Kansas. It's unbelievable. You cannot let that happen. Michigan State needs to do more recruiting.
I think Josh Jackson he went to Kansas. It's a better program. Caleb Swanigan, I think there might have been some shady business going on. I think there might have been a gigantic duffel bag of cash just left off somewhere that maybe one of his relatives picked up. I'm not saying anything, but
Allegedly.
This team, the kids want to go where they know that they're going to excel, they're going to get drafted. That's why Kentucky is able to retool every single year. They lose their entire freshman class, but then they bring in a bunch of McDonald's All-Stars.
And here's the point that people have noticed with Tom Izzo. Look what he did to Nick Ward early in the year. Look what he did to some of those freshmen. I mean, Cassius Winston only got extended minutes now in the last 5 games. When you look at it, one and dones, if Michigan State is going to go in that direction, you got to change it up and change up what you're doing. Because if you're going to send messages and not let them have minutes, one and dones want to be featured and they want to play so that they can feature their talents and leave to the NBA. So if you're going to go down that road, which it looks like you now are, with Deontay Davis leaving early, with Miles Bridges leaving early, with the potential of other guys that they're going to recruit that play for Michigan State leaving early, you cannot bench these guys if they struggle on defense. You got to let them, you got to basically, I would say, cater to one and dones if you want more of them to come, because they all talk to each other. Miles Bridges wanted to stay close to home and things like that, but other one and dones nationally aren't going to travel to Michigan State and play here for 1 year if they know they're going to get benched and get ridden like that by the head coach. They don't want that.
And honestly, I don't see Tom Izzo doing that. I think you can be a successful team by trying to get one or maybe two of those really good players like we had. We had the ability to be a good team, but I think we had too many times where we were only recruiting one or two of these good players and then they were just leaving, and we forgot to really build up the upperclassmen. That's what, if we would have had a Denzel Valentine or somebody who can actually lead this team and could be a consistent somebody who you could put out there and you don't have to worry about them. We didn't have that on our teams, and definitely we got hurt by injuries. Aaron Harris and the Gavin Chillings. It just didn't work out this year. And I think if they can develop and keep some of those guys, some of those freshmen that they had this year, the next year or two, we could have really good teams, and we can see a return to getting at least somewhere in the top 3 seeds.
And so the way I want to classify is basically Michigan State's plateaued in that they get to the tournament, they make runs, but are they a serious threat in any way to make a deep run and win it all? I think what Tom Izzo's built is a national type program, but without the results. And so it really depends on how you want to look at it, because college basketball is a winning business. And when you look at it, you go, Tom Izzo is a winning coach. He gets his team into the postseason, and he's built a program that is nationally respected. But then you go, the next level is, can you consistently get back to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, the Final Fours, year in, year out, and get into the title game? I think he needs one more decent run, at least to the title game, to kind of move this along and build that momentum, because right now you got other teams like the Michigan Wolverines with some momentum, and they're doing some things and, garnering all the press. You got the 2017 Mr. Michigan going to Michigan now.
I don't know. Michigan still has some work to do. This has been a great season for them, and I think for them it came out of nowhere. But they're going to have to do this for another year or two, where they consistently are exceeding expectations, advancing in the NCAA tournament. And Michigan, Tom Izzo has done that. He's gotten the teams to Sweet 16s, Elite 8s.
You don't think Michigan State is stagnant at all?
It's been 2 years where it's been really tough in the tournament. I think Middle Tennessee State, that was almost a fluke. And then this year they're decimated by injuries. If they can go in healthy to a NCAA tournament next year, I think they can still make a run. The big thing is he can't beat North Carolina, can't beat Duke, and more than likely those two are the teams you're going to have to face going into the Final Four or into the championship game.
And you look at it and you go, okay, is McQuaid going to be the guy that's going to shoot the threes, lights out? Is Cassius Winston going to emerge as a solid point guard in his second year? Are the new freshmen going to be acclimated and get into the rhythm of what Michigan State needs to do that fast? So it's just one of those things where you look at it and you go, okay, Michigan State can make a run, but look at the other teams, Kansas. Look at Louisville, what they're bringing back. They're bringing back their entire team that was so solid. And you look at other squads, you go, Duke will always reload. Kentucky will reload. And so the reason why I ask, is Michigan State stagnant, is, are you willing to accept this for the next 5 years? Make a run to the Final Four, get to the Sweet 16, maybe an early round loss, and not making consistent deep runs. And I think that Tom Izzo and where he's at and what he's built should be further along and should be doing more. And I know it's tough to say that because many people will say it's a tough business and things like that, but I think that he could be doing a lot more if he would maybe approach the one and dones differently, if he would set rotations differently. I think this team, maybe had Miles Bridges not been injured, could have done some things. You could have defeated Kansas. You were within 1 point, and Nick Ward goes out with foul trouble. You leave him out for a significant portion of the second half. You just got to ride it out sometimes. And I know that people will say, "Hey, you don't want a guy with foul trouble to be out of the game." But I would say that, hey, listen, look at the numbers. There was a significant difference when Nick Ward was on the floor, like a plus 20. Versus when he was out, it was like a minus 15. So when he was out of the game, they were getting crushed. As soon as Nick Ward went out of the game with foul trouble in the second half, it was done. Kansas made their runs, and Michigan State could not come back. I would argue that potentially that same game that we just watched could have turned out differently had the rotations and sets been utilized differently. Michigan State could have taken advantage.
Yeah, completely possible. You know who got hurt and then came back in the game and helped the Michigan State Spartans?
Who's that?
Mateen Cleaves.
Oh, yeah?
Mateen.
In the biggest moment possible. That was the greatest day of my life.
I remember that. I was a kid.
I was, what? What do you mean? You were, that's right.
I'm in 8th grade. You're older than me. You're old as dirt.
Wow. Yeah, just now hit home that I was in college. I was a sophomore, junior in college when that happened.
It was 2000. I was in either 8th grade or beginning of 9th grade.
Wow. It was a great time, man. I was in my dorm room. I watched it with a buddy. We had a good old time. When he went out, I was like, because he was slew-footed by the Florida guy, and came back and led us to a title. And that was a night where we literally partied for 8 hours straight, midnight to 8 a.m., went to class, right from there, right from the party to class. It was classic. It was a great night. And I just don't see, that's what we want. We want consistent opportunities to go back. And I know that they're only a couple years removed from a Final Four. It's just the word that I don't see momentum. I see stagnation. I see that Michigan State's in a spot where this is what we're going to get for the next couple years, is that we're going to make runs, but do I seriously consider what Michigan State is, do I consider them to be a serious threat to win it all? And my answer is no. And I think Tom Izzo would say the same thing, is that he's got to be disappointed. He's got to go back to the drawing board and figure out, how do I get to the next level, which is get back to a situation where you can make a run and make at least, 2 Final Fours in 3 years. Makes a run, or what is it going to take to reevaluate and get one more national title under his belt? He needs it. Michigan State, I think, as a basketball program, needs it, and as a university, based on what we're hearing outside of the basketball program, what's going on with football and other type stuff, they need a wave of positivity, because we're going to segue soon to talk about Michigan, but the Michigan Wolverine tidal wave is kind of taking over what's going on in the state of Michigan. All the hype, all the press, all the positivity is all going toward the maize and blue side, and State's got to do something to turn that around quick. Otherwise, they're going to get smothered by Michigan.
Well, yeah, you stole my segue, John. I was going to say, a team that isn't stagnant and is poised to make a run to the Final Four, the Michigan Wolverines. Unprobable. They go out, they beat Oklahoma State in the first round, and then they beat a solid 2-seeded Louisville team. And you were there for it.
It was amazing. It was one of those things where I'm like,
you
okay.
were rooting for Michigan.
I was not rooting for Michigan. I was very professional, and it was one of those things where I saw the opportunity to go apply for a credential. I've learned how to go do it.
You put on your Amarillo and blue jersey.
Nope. I was dressed
painting
nicely.
Your face blue and yellow.
And the funny part was, applying for it, I applied on a whim, not really thinking with less than 0% chance of being approved. When I got the email back that Monday ahead of Monday Night Raw, and I'm like, they approved me. And I told my wife, I was at the gym. I said, honey, they said yes. I'm like, she's like, I don't want you to go. She's like, I'm going to go then if you go. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on here. Let me think about this for a second. I didn't consider that they would even say yes. Sometimes we've applied to a lot of things where they just outright said no or ignored you. But it's one of those things where with the NCAA, they send you an email that you sent it, and they sent a denial or approval within a day or two. So they're pretty good about it. So it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, let's go do it. Let's plan it out and let's go do it. So I pretty much recalled what I did versus my coverage for Oakland University, and I went out there and said, okay, all I'm going to try to do is cover the game like I know how, which is get out there early, try my best to set the scene, show people what it's like to be there, take some pictures, try to talk to the players, and enjoy the game and cover it in a way that would be somewhat professional. And I think I did a good job. If you follow along on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, I think that you were able to kind of get a sense of what was going on. I took a lot of pictures. And then after the game, it was a solid game and a historic game. The 3 barrage was unbelievable for Michigan in that they struggled in the first half with the Oklahoma State press. They came back in the second half and just started lighting it up from the 3-point line, which allowed for really an exciting environment. After the game, everybody was excited. I got myself situated. The thing that I would say that I could have done better was definitely, instead of maybe focusing on the environment and stuff like that, ask questions like, where's the locker room? Where's this? Where's that? Get the nuts and bolts of the operation down. So it's kind of like a fly by the seat of my pants type of thing. But that made it fun too. In that after the press conference, where I did get to fire off a question, which was pretty cool, got to say the name of the network in front of everybody. So that was pretty cool.
They're like, what? Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
You want to hear it? You want to hear it? You know I have it on tape. You want to hear it?
Of course you do. You always have to get your little drops in, and let's hear it.
No, I actually took a video of it because the NCAA doesn't let you live record it, but they give you a feed from the press conference, so the doc definitely took some video of it and said, oh boy, here it is.
Let's hear your cute quote.
Yeah, no, it's a really solid professional question, and maybe you can tell me how I did. I think I did a good job.
Right here. John Macker, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Coach, this question's for you.
Who are you?
Yep, Oklahoma State seemed to be able to press you guys and cause
I'm
some
not talking
issues,
about podcasts.
allowing maybe the ball to go out to the 3 in the first half. What were they able to do with the press, causing your offensive struggles?
They were trying to slow us down. And then
That would be John Beeline addressing the doc.
And but at the same time, we had 19 assists and 4 turnovers. So it took us just a little bit out of our rhythm. And then the shot clock's going down, and we just, at that point, I just thought there's 5 or 6 times everybody in the country was
Good
saying they
for
gotta stop
you, Doc.
Ain't that some shit that after an NCAA game, a podcaster is asking a question? And it was one of those things where after a while, and I think my experience covering Oakland really helped me, it's just follow the game, pay attention, do a little bit of research. You go out there, and I didn't do what Justin Rhodes gets mad at. I didn't say talk about. I asked him a question, and that I did follow along with what other reporters said, and they noticed that the OK State press was hurting Michigan in the first half. So I just took control of the mic, grabbed it, and said, hey, I want to ask a question. And here's the best part. Always something cockeyed happens when I'm around, right? The guy introed it and said, we're taking questions for coach and the student athletes. And John Beilein, I ask him a question. He automatically points to the players and goes, no, the questions are for the players. And the guy next to him had to redirect him and say, no, this is open to everybody. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. He's open to everybody because I listened. So he answered my question graciously. Then the press conference ends, right? So I start seeing a wave of reporters running this way. So I'm like, okay, I'm following them. That was my goal was I know I'm going to find somebody and just follow them. So I see a wave of people going, and what happens is the big networks start coming over right after the press conference. Beilein goes to talk to ESPN, so I'm standing right there. And if you go to our Instagram page and our Twitter page, you'll see the pictures that I took. So I'm standing literally at a live shot watching Coach Beilein be interviewed by, I believe, Andy Katz from ESPN, noted college basketball expert. Then the Big Ten Network gets some of the players, and basically it was Walton and Beilein exchange. So Walton goes to ESPN, and then Coach goes to the Big Ten Network. And I see kind of how the vibe goes. They just go right there. They talk to the people that are in charge. They get it done, and then boom, I zoom from there to the locker room where it's a mass chaos media zoo. But I got in there, and I asked questions to both Coach Beilein, and to Zach Irvin. And it was one of those things where I definitely didn't feel like I belonged, but based on my stature and what I was doing, I fit in perfectly because I'm not a big guy, so I can kind of weave my way in and out. There's some big guys with cameras, microphones, stands. They got to do a lot of different things. For me, it was absolutely perfect to go into that locker room because I'm a smaller guy. I could weave my way in, and what you got to do is you don't go where the media swarm is because the media swarms to certain people at different times. So they swarmed to Derek Walton, they swarmed to John Beilein, which allowed me then an opportunity to talk to Zach Irvin, to talk to Duncan Robinson, to talk to Mo Wagner, and it was awesome. So it was something where I learned, a lot about what goes on in a locker room because that's the first time I've been in a live locker room talking to a player outside of a press room. And the understanding is you can't be timid. You got to go in there and just ask the question. Go in there and just act like you know what you're doing. And I was definitely scared. You could tell I was nervous because there's bright lights, there's microphones, there's people taping, and people are doing their professional work. And I was, there to cover the game, but I definitely didn't have the experience to get in there first and get right up in everyone's business. But hey, I was more in the background. I learned a lot, and I did observe a lot of things about what people ask. And it was nothing really out of the ordinary. Thoughts about the game, thoughts about different things, and about advancing and a lot of different things. So it wasn't like I didn't know what to ask. And in terms of Michigan, it's a great story all around. It's a great story based upon the way this team has come together, the way they're playing. Many people didn't think they would get past Louisville, and they played a solid game. What impressed people about the Louisville game was Louisville. Rick Pitino did his job masterfully, cut off the three. Said, we're not letting you shoot threes. Michigan's like, sure, no problem. We'll go inside out. We'll go inside to Wagner. We'll go inside to DJ Wilson. We'll let some situations happen. And other guys carried Michigan into to advance versus Louisville. So
would you say that Michigan actually kind of has that team of destiny look? They had the improbable run through the Big Ten tournament, and now going through Oklahoma State, Louisville, and going to Missouri. And that's another question. Have you applied for your credentials in Missouri?
I did not. I let the deadline pass. I'm not going to Missouri. The wife would not let me, of course not. But I did say, listen, the Final Four is in Arizona. There's an opportunity.
That's a hike.
Yeah, and plus
that's all the way on the other side of the country.
But listen, it was really, it's a lot. It was draining because the way I did it was I went that Friday morning, left at 4:15 a.m., got there about 9:15, set up shop, left right after the game about 4 o'clock after the coverage and everything died down, got back into town at 10 o'clock. So I didn't do the whole stay there because here's what they do. It's a good racket. The hotels make you, if you book a hotel for the media, you have to pay for 2 nights. You have to pay for 2 nights. I would have did it for one night at $189, but to pay for 2 nights, why? It was a cheap drive. $20 there, $20 back. So basically my out-of-pocket expense to go there and cover an event without any hotel, food was provided. Well, I paid for food for my wife was $55.
That's not bad. It's a pretty decent deal.
That's a decent deal, right?
To go and cover a national event.
Cover a national event, learn a lot, and really elevate the podcast because just sitting there, think about it. is that a podcast network started 3 years ago is asking questions of the Michigan head basketball coach, and that's after we got denied several times to go to cover games in Ann Arbor. They said no, and I was shocked that they approved me because you had to put down that you were on the team list for Michigan, and I'd never covered a game for Michigan. They denied me 3 times for going to cover a game, and but it wasn't due to the fact that we couldn't do it. It was due to the fact that I applied mid-season. You can't do that. That's the secret. You cannot apply for a credential midway through the year. You got to get on early. Beforehand, I applied for the credential on the Sunday prior to the Friday game. And on Monday in the afternoon, if you push the apply button, it said it's closed because it was full. There's 3 dozen organizations that they had there. And they're not all big networks. Websites were there because they allowed damn near 50 people. I wasn't privileged enough to go down at the bottom for the media row. I was at the top, but it was still like in the middle of the upper deck and lower bowl. So it was nice, but there were damn near 55 seats there. So there's a lot of room for coverage, but you got to get it early. That's the key. Get in early and try your best to apply. And hey, so far so good. I think, the hard thing is, though, there's too many rules. Like, don't apply video, don't do live this, don't do that. And I really wouldn't say that I sit here and know them all, but basically I didn't post too many live videos from the event, and I didn't post the press conference live, which was the edict from the guy. It was like, do not post anything from this press conference. It is owned by the NCAA. So they're like, if you want access to it, you want the quotes and stuff, here's the website. I have complete access to it. I downloaded it to my other computer. So I have video proof that I was there, and you now heard it on the podcast. I was not afraid, not timid. And that's the thing that I think I would really implore and tell everybody is that you can do it. You can ask questions. It's sports. And if you follow sports and you care, it's not that difficult to get a question asked to an athlete about a game. So I was happy to do it. And really for me, more it was about like, we did it. I mean, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network went to Indy and we earned a credential. And it's one of those things where it's really cool and I enjoyed it. And I liked the fact that it was well run, very organized, and I read in the paper on Monday that the contingency from Detroit for next year was there, taking it all in, figuring out how to do it, because Little Caesars Arena is going to host the regional first and second round, March 16th and 18th of 2017. So it's going to be 2018. So it's going to be very cool.
So soon enough, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is going to be everywhere.
We're going to have a channel, baby. Up and on. We're going to have our own Detroit Sports Podcast Network channel. What are you going to do? Hey, all you got to do is dream big, man. If you had told me in October when we were doing a podcast that, yeah, you're going to get credentialed to go cover an NCAA game, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure, man. I told you, I applied literally with the notion they were going to deny me in 5 seconds. They approved me. And once that happens, you say, okay, I can do the job, based upon learning from you and what you did, working at 105.1, going out there and doing the legwork, covering Oakland, talking to Adam, talking to Vito. It's one of those things. And also, too, you have to pay attention to what other media guys do. I follow other media. I know what they talk about. I know what they ask. And
that's the biggest way to learn is just to watch
just watch the experts, man. And I go, wow, I'm nowhere near in the class of a Mark Schneider from the Free Press. Dude was on top of everything, on details, on storylines. And what I did was I covered Michigan, and a lot of the guys didn't do that. They stayed for the second game and got the reaction of Rick Pitino for the next game. So there's a lot of ways you can go in terms of your coverage. Any bit of information is great to pass along. And the good thing is we have an outlet to do it. And I think people do respect the fact that, hey, I'm just a regular guy going out there and trying to do this. And it's really cool. I like the fact that I'm not tied to anybody. It's me. I set it up. I'm in charge. We can go out there and do whatever we want with, I'm not going to edit too many things from anyone that's here. And they can go out there and have a good old time with it. And so I think that the coverage was great, and I'm appreciative of the fact that we got to go out there and do it. But your question, do I think Michigan is a team that can do it all? They got the sense of a team that can get to the Final Four, but win it all with the big boys. This is the thing that Michigan, if you look at it objectively, they can shoot, they can play team ball. Defense and rebounding eventually is going to get to them when you have a team that has big boys, because they're undersized as a team. So
realistically, when they get to Kansas, it's going to be
super.
Matchup.
It's going to be a tough matchup. I mean,
they're going to have to play perfect, and that's what I said last week. I said each Michigan and Michigan State, they're going to have to play perfect if they're going to advance.
Exactly, and so a team like Michigan, though, if they can adjust and have a good time and play well, play team defense and rebound, you do need contributions from everybody. You need it from Abdul Rahman. You need it from Walton Jr., Zach Irvin. But senior leadership, man, that's what it is. The two seniors are leading this team. It does have a team of destiny feel, but I do believe if they do get to the Final Four, many people will be thrilled with what's happened, especially with how the way the season played out, right? People were calling for,
people were
Beilein's
calling for Beilein's job just as early before the Big Ten tournament.
What's your take on the Michigan team? Do you think that, did you sit and watch some of their games? Did you watch the Louisville game, OK State?
I didn't watch too much of really any of their games because I don't really like Michigan. But
want them to lose.
This team and this, I don't want them to lose. I'm not going to openly root for them. But if they end up, advancing, they get to the Final Four, they're an improbable team. So I don't have a problem with them upsetting some of the balance that's in the NCAA. If they're able to knock off a Kansas, that would be, it'd be really cool to see. And if they get into that Final Four, and they'd probably be facing either a North Carolina or Kentucky, another huge matchup. And I'm not gonna root for them, but if they can knock off one of those teams, it's gonna be an interesting storyline.
Will Michigan make the Final Four before Riley Sheehan scores a goal?
No.
Riley Sheehan's gonna score?
Actually, I just don't think either of them are realistic. Will
Michigan State win an NCAA tournament game again ahead of Riley Sheehan scoring a goal?
I'd like to think so. I don't know. Riley Sheehan. Just score already, man. Or go to the Golden Knights, wherever. You're going to be unprotected in our draft anyways. So peace out.
Oh, you want Riley Sheehan to be off the team?
Yes. I want the young kids I want the young kid movement to come up and just continue.
What'd you make of, did you see the celebration after the game with the water gun with John Beilein? Really, it's one of those things where you can see that, Coach Beilein.
He's embracing what's going on. And
exactly.
I think after being a coach for over 40 years, that he's finally, I think he's kind of loosening up a little bit. And
when you have a near-death experience, speaking as a psychologist, you start to take everything much more seriously. And so when you win an NCAA tournament game, outside people are going to speculate how far you're going to go, like we are, like how far and things like that. But when you're in the moment and you're a coach, you savor everything much more when you have a near-death experience. So winning a first-round game, really, they were thrilled. Winning a second-round game versus Louisville and Rick Pitino, and not ever having, I think, and also avenging that loss that Michigan had, where if you really look at it, many people do still feel that Michigan got screwed on that foul call in the NCAA tournament game. They were leading, and that call was really brutal against Michigan. They called a foul, and when you see the still, his hand was on the ball. So you can see now that Coach Beilein is savoring this run and is just going out there having a good old time, and many people are seeing it, and you're going to probably see that clip of him running into the locker room with the water gun when they play One Shining Moment. Because
for sure, that's going to be...
It's a great scene, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a great scene, and it's one that's well-deserved because the team was maligned. Many people fell off the bandwagon, and many people felt like this team wasn't going to go anywhere. And to turn it around and to be able to bring this team together with that talent, you got to go, wow, because they do have resolve. They have grit. It's a team that plays well together. And despite their weaknesses, they go out there and do their business. And that's what a lot of people are trying to kind of figure out is, do we want to build a team like Michigan where they just jack up threes and have an opportunity to, get big leads by the three? But he's trying to change the perception because they can go inside. They can play an inside game. And I guess the key before we end this segment is, I think this team will go as far as Wagner takes them.
Totally.
If Wagner is an inside presence and a threat, they have a chance if he can get 20 points a game.
Indeed. So percentage chance that next week we're talking about Michigan in the Final Four.
35%.
30? That's a pretty big percentage, I would say, to have to go out and beat Oregon and more than likely have to beat number 1 seed Kansas. You're actually giving them a pretty decent chance.
We got to remember, Kansas is a team that is also led by young players, and they have a reputation, Bill Self, of choking big games.
I'm gonna go 15%, just because I think it's a tough road, and they got to beat a good Oregon team, and they're gonna have to beat. Unless they're gonna be playing Purdue in that Elite Eight game, it's gonna be an interesting matchup.
All right, Jason, I always enjoy when you come in here, rap about college sports. I always enjoy the time that we get to spend. And I think that'll conclude this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant, man. Good stuff.
For sure, I gotta go take care of my baby. Gotta go relieve the wife. That's a lie. My wife, I love my wife, and I would never relieve her. Our kid is a blessing, and that's where I'm gonna go.
Thanks for everybody's support. Easy way to support us. Go visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And thank you for your support. I wouldn't be crazy enough to go out to Indy on the same day of the game if I didn't have the support and the fact that a lot of people do engage with us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, on our website, downloading all these episodes. You help us keep the studio lights on and the microphones hot. Check out our Twitter page, man, for all the great Detroit sports content. Thanks, Jason.
Episode 99 in the books. Next week, 100. Maybe we'll have something cool. Maybe not. But we'll see you next week. Peace out.
Okay, nice idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.